Each year, several thousand inmates of Maryland's correctional system walk back to society, past the guards, through the barred doors, toward the freedom of the street which beckons. It is usually a time of relief mixed with apprehension, especially for the man or woman who has been through the process before. For he or she knows that the return to society, without training or education, but with the added handicap of a prison record, can be an emotionally and physically agonizing thing.
If he makes the parole, they're only turning him loose on the street on a string, like a yo-yo. He can't go where he wants to go. He can't work where he wants to. He can't live where he wants to. He can't date whom he wants to. In other words, they keep trying to tell you they're going to make a man out of you, and they're going to rehabilitate you. Rehabilitate, you have to do that yourself. They can't do nothing in that field. But as far as making a man out of you, you can go in there as a 50-year-old man, and they're supposed to make a man out of you. And the day we release you on parole, you become a juvenile delinquent again, because you, as a 50-year-old man, must go on the street and ask some 25-year-old parole officer if it's all right for you to stay out after 11 o'clock. Or can you drive an automobile? Can you move from one apartment to another? What can you do? You ask him for permission to do everything but eat, sleep, and drink. And you better not be drinking the wrong stuff.
And if you make yourself want to do things and try to do the right thing, and then when you're released from here, you get $20. What can you do with $20? You make 60 cents a day. So what can you do? You go out to get a job. They'll say, well, where you last work? That's it right there, no job. So the only way that you can do anything is to change your name. Then when you change your name, you automatically break the law, you see. And I don't care how well you can do anything constructive, never a chance when you're an ex-convict.
And another thing, if you're sentenced to a 5-year sentence, you do 500 if you live that long. Because when you're sentenced to 5 years, that's what the judge feels you owe society. But you do that 5 years day for day in an institution and get discharged. Apply for a job 15 years later that requires bonding and so on, and that 5 years the judge gave you 15 years ago still reflects on you. You don't get the jobs and so on. Because you're sentenced to a life sentence, no matter if it's only a 6-month sentence, it's still for life.
Take a second. Just chill out for a minute. Take a second. Check this out. Just a mad cool out. And we just chilling right here in D&D studio. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning. We're gonna talk about what you believe in. We're gonna talk about how you've been trained. So we're gonna come down like this. Let me take you to another level. After 7 years of rockin', how do you rate me? Poorly or greatly, everybody seems to be going for theirs lately. Yo, mad heads be needing money, so listen very close as I conduct this little study. See, it's funny to me, you can watch TV and give up your life trying to be all you can be in the army, not knowing your history. You either fight or die or come back home in misery. Yo, get with me, I deal with reality. Loosen your mind to the truth and don't get mad at me. No politician can give you peace. If you trust Jesus, why do you vote for a beast? Emancipation is long overdue, so it becomes procrastination, cause freedom is within you. For some reason we think we're free, so we'll never be, because we haven't recognized slavery. You still a slave, look at how you behave, debating on where and when and how and what massa gave. You wanna know how we screwed up from the beginning? We accepted our oppressor's religion. So in the case of slavery, it ain't hard, because it's right in the eyes of their God. Where is our God? The God that represents us, the God that looks like me, the God that I could trust. A God of peace and love, not mass hysteria. I don't want a God that blesses America. I could never really vote for the devil. Let me take you to a higher level. Take the title from the Bible, we can get there. Rip the title from off the front of the Bible, God don't live there. Too many inconsistencies, too many mysteries. Picture the Pope in the Vatican laughing and drinking and singing and kissing me. I stand with God, whether I'm paid or whether I'm crying broke. I like to ask these politicians, would Jesus vote? The way we view God is a freaking shame. Church is to blame. We trust God but Bob Hussein. We simply loving the scripture. Same scripture that whipped you, sooner the richer. Religion's getting richer. With that European version of Christ made into a picture, our society's getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Like liquor, we are God intoxicated. Not to the true God, but the one the government created. The same government's telling people to vote. I pray to God because the people have lost hope. You either vote for the mumps or the measles. Whether you vote for the lesser of two evils, you vote for evil. Politics and God are not equal, but the education they get on God is really lethal. People have more respect for a holy book than they do for a cow on a meat hook. Believers of Jesus be denouncing Satan on every level, but every Halloween they're dressing like devils. I pray to you for the light you might give them. Mother, make them know that you're living within them. You begin them and end them in silence, frankly. If they knew you, they would understand violence. I pray to you for the Pope and the Vatican. Have mercy, Mother, cause I know that you're mad at them. The white Jesus deceived us a while ago, and Pope Julius II paid Michelangelo. I know this happened in 1519, yet this is the image we can't seem to forget. Vote for God, don't vote for the devil. Let me take you to a higher level.
This is George Rogers welcoming you to Part 4 of WMAR-TV's Bars to Progress. In Parts 1 and 2 of this 5-part series, we examine the effect of confinement on a person and explore the educational opportunities and liabilities of prison life. And we saw in Part 3 that many inmates are interested in helping themselves become better citizens. Now we're at the point in time when the inmate is released. What faces him? In many instances, a hypocritical world that promises much and delivers little, a bewildering maze of agencies, and all too often a return to his old way of life and crime. Unfortunately, the inmate is not blameless when it comes to hypocrisy. Often, to secure his release, he's forced into playing games with the administration before he even leaves the institution. One program, which is certainly well-intentioned but often serves as little more than a vehicle for game playing, is known as work release. This is the system whereby an inmate secures a job while still in prison and is allowed to leave the institution during his working hours. The advantages of work release are obvious. The inmate is able to earn money and gradually readjust himself to society and freedom. So far, the work release program is not large. Only about 7% of the total prison population take part in it, but expansion is planned. The program's main disadvantage is that its main purpose, making sure the inmate has a job waiting for him when he's released, is seldom attained. Now, this is true for a variety of reasons. Many inmates, for instance, will accept any work release position simply because they know it will shorten their time in prison or impress the administration. The jobs open to them under the work release program are low-paying, usually laborious, and often seasonal, with very few openings for the man who's been lucky enough to upgrade his education. In addition, the jobs are usually located near one of the correctional system's camps. When a man is returned to his home, Baltimore for example, he suddenly finds himself 40, 50, or 100 miles from his job. As a result, only about 15% of those taking work release jobs retain them after discharge. The game playing continues during the inmates' meetings with a parole board. Each man is eligible for parole and release after serving 1/4 of his sentence if he can convince the parole board that he's a good risk. The board is composed of 6 regular members and a chairman who are appointed by the governor at $20,000 plus a year salaries. The position is therefore a political one, rather than one for which exact sociological and penological qualifications are spelled out. Also, there are few exact standards governing a man's release or retention. Thus, the inmate often tells the parole board what he thinks it wants to hear, rather than his true situation. If the inmate is able to secure his release, he begins the agency experience by coming under the scrutiny and care of the Maryland Division of Parole and Probation. Before his release, the inmate has already been the subject of an H&E, home and employment investigation, by the Division of Parole and Probation to determine if suitable quarters and employment await the ex-offender. If the ex-offender has a special problem, such as drug addiction, the Division of Parole and Probation may refer him to its comparatively new narcotics clinic at 2100 North Utah Street. Other drug abuse facilities serving more than 400 ex-offenders exist in the county as well. The Division of Parole and Probation also operates out of several small mayor's stations, such as this one at Stewart Hill. The object of the mayor's station concept is to place branches of many agencies in the community where they'll be more accessible to those who need them. Unfortunately, like his institutional counterpart known as the classification officer, the parole and probation agent often finds that understaffing and inadequate training prevent him from really helping the ex-offender adjust to community life.
I think one of the biggest problems in the division is the area of frustration among the agents, because there is no training to prepare you for the job you're doing. A great percentage of the agents, and possibly even a majority of the agents, are freshly out of college. They're highly idealistic and highly motivated to do something on the social order, but there's no training because they have a degree in one of the social sciences, and in some cases not even in the social sciences, could have a BA in English, becomes a parole agent or a probation agent, and very little training in counseling techniques or working with individuals or problem solving or anything like this. And this tends to frustrate the agent who walks into the office one day and has 120 cases tossed in his lap the next day and has had absolutely no orientation or training in how to deal with people in general. And I think the biggest problem with parole and probation today, at least in the state of Maryland, is the bureaucratic red tape involved. When an agent wants to do something or make a decision involving one of his cases, there's a multitude of red paper paperwork that he has to go through first. For example, if we have a parolee who's an extremely risky case, we're not sure whether he'll come back or not. Let's say he has a relative who dies out of state. And the first thing we have to do is we have to do up a special request to ask permission, to give him permission to leave the state, to go home for a funeral. Let's say Georgia, for example. All right, from us, after this is typed, proofread, and signed, it goes to the supervisor, who again has to proofread it and sign it. From there, it goes to the office boss, who again proofreads it, and he'll initial it or just pass it through. From there, it will go to the area administrator. From there, it will go to the executive office and possibly to the person who can give that permission. Then, from there, it comes all the way back down the line, step by step, and finally we get it. This could take a period of 3 or 4 weeks.
Frustrated at the agency experience, many ex-offenders find themselves in the position of 31-year-old Robert Montgomery, partially skilled in one trade but unable to solve the employment problem alone.
The fact is, I realized that I was losing most of my life in jail. I had spent almost half my life in jail. So while I was still incarcerated, I decided to try to learn a trade, better my education a little bit. Went to school for maybe 2 years to learn barber. Came out on a program as an apprentice barber. After 18 months, I became a master barber. While I was on this barber program, I started working for a guy at a 70 30% basis. He received 30% of all the business I did. After a few months, I asked him for a change in the percentage. Well, he denied this. So I turned to contractors, construction work. So as I worked for 6 months at 480 an hour. Things was pretty reasonable and coming under control, and I was able to see some kind of future for myself. But the work got slack. I was laid off, along with some other guy. But the problem started. Go to people for a job. They find I got a record. On the application, do you have a record? I'm sorry, we don't employ people with record. I'm in a desperate situation. Who can I turn to? When the refrigerator's empty, I'm hungry. Who can I turn to? I have to turn back to the streets. There's no program that I can go to. It's a program for juveniles, it's Job Corps or something, where they help place you in a job. But me, who can I go to? So I'm back in the street.
To fully understand the scope of the problem facing Robert Montgomery and others like him, it's only necessary to stand on any busy corner in the city. Then one will be able to see just how many jobs are not open to the ex-offender. Banks, for example, do not hire persons with prison records. The reason can be summed up in one word. The city's mass transit company does not hire ex-offenders. Most service stations will not give jobs to those with records. Ex-offenders are barred from driving taxi cabs. The Chesapeake and Potomac Telephone Company does not hire ex-offenders for security reasons. Companies which require bonding will not hire ex-offenders. And parole and probation frowns on a man working in a packaged goods store. Some attempts have been made to bring ex-offender and employer closer together. On October 20th, 1971, for example, the AFL-CIO Steelworkers Hall was the scene of the first Interagency Employment Council seminar. Described as a consortium of government, nonprofit, and profit-making organizations devoted to the reduction of crime, drug addiction, and recidivism, the council used its seminar as a meeting ground for union, management, and ex-offender. Employing psychodrama and role-playing rather than speeches, the participants attempted to get their points across by talking or arguing face-to-face. The man on the left, for example, is an ex-offender. The man on the right, a representative from a large company. Role-play director Joseph Killeen explains the technique.
Before we start, something I'd like to tell you that isn't on. In using role-play here, what we're trying to accomplish with this group is not only just audience participation, but a meaningful experience that all of these people here might have. Can the employee, applicant, can he feel into the role of the employer? The kind of thing that the employer has to deal with when he hires somebody. He has company policy, he has other employees that he must consider, what they feel about hiring an ex-con, these sorts of things. Can the employer himself, whether he's the personnel manager, the vice president, or whoever, or just an employment interviewer, can he feel into the situation of what these young people are going through who come out of prison, who are black in most cases in Maryland? Can he feel into what this man's personal experience is? What hangs him up? Is the young man feeling that society is so prejudiced, so bitter toward him, not only as a black person, but as an ex-con, that they don't want to deal with him, that they don't want to hire him? Black people have been living with this thing for a long time, and once you take on the second stigma of being an ex-offender, you get a feeling that nobody wants to listen to you. So we're using role play, this sort of psychodramatic technique, to bring these feelings out, getting these people to travel more by their guts. There's what they feel inside and express this, more so than talking off the top of their head in some sort of a discussion unit or something like that. You've made it. My concern is, would you be willing now, on the basis of
that I'll check this out, and if I find everything as you've told me, and if you commit yourself to me that you want this opportunity and that you're going to make the most out of it, would you be willing to complete this form now so that when we check later and write it like it is?
Reverse roles. Now what I want you to do, sir, is, okay, change your seats. Change your seats. You're now Joe. You're the employer. You've got to be this guy. You've got to climb into his...
After the ex-offender and employer have acted out their real roles, they are asked to switch roles. Thus, each man will hear how he sounds to the other.
Okay, now the question you just asked a moment ago, sir, was, would you be willing to finish this application? Would you please ask this gentleman that now?
Now, in view of the things that you've stated, would you be willing to complete this application and place on it all these things that you've told me, your prior criminal records, your offenses, etc., so that we can check this out, and if we find that this is true, then we'll continue considering you for this position?
Are you telling me that if I put this on the record, and if you find it as I've told you, that I have an honest opportunity for this job and that you're sincere? Because I don't want to waste the time if I don't still have a chance after doing it.
Well, certainly. And after evaluating them for ourselves, you see, just finding out just how truthful you may be and whether there are any discrepancies that you haven't revealed to me here. But you understand, after all, you will be working in an area where...
I'm losing in 1960.
You know what's happening here? He's doing a beautiful role of what he thinks he would do if he could have got in those shoes. But you are not in this gentleman's role. You are in your own role projected.
I hear what he's telling me too.
Okay, well, that's what I was hearing when he was putting me through this.
Right. Okay, is that what you...
Oh yeah, that's what I was hearing from
Okay.
him. That I'm going to check this out. And
The face-to-face dramatization of the seminar was an interesting experiment in communications, but it was also interesting in that it pointed up just how far the communication lines still must be extended. Of the nearly 150 employees who were invited to send representatives to the meeting, for example, only 7 did so. Jack Worsfold, a volunteer worker for the Prisoners' Aid Association, says this is a typical example of employer apathy.
You find a lot of people will hire one ex-con. You see, it's just like they hire their nigger, they hire their epileptic, they hire their ex-con. There are some companies you go into and they got a zoo, and when they bring visitors into the company, they take them through the zoo. They say, see that guy, he's an epileptic, he's a paraplegic, he's a black man, he's an ex-con, and it's just there for window dressing. It's just that they have a zoo that they're proud to show off, and they try to make people believe that they're doing something. When you consider that companies who advertise that they are helping minorities, you consider these companies spend more money advertising what they're doing than actually helping minorities. It's the same thing with ex-cons. A lot of companies that, you see companies are usually in 2 categories. Either they hire 1 or 2 or a very few ex-cons to say, we're doing our bit. Or else, as some companies, they hire these ex-cons because they figure that they're a low form of life and they can work the devil out of them. There's a company down in South Baltimore now that takes these guys in, pays them $1.65 an hour. They handle rags. They have to handle piles of rags, 1,500 pounds to one sack of rags. And these guys are forced to work at a certain speed. They're all the time pushing them to work hard, hard, hard. And they only hire ex-cons and you know, the lowest form of social life that they can find, because they can work them hard, they've got nobody to complain to.
Although several agencies such as parole and probation have tried to make adjustment easier for the inmate by going to the institutions, the most personal agency is the Maryland Prisoners' Aid Association. Because it makes a regular practice of meeting released men at the door, Prisoners' Aid is usually able to establish a quick rapport with the ex-offender.
What are you gonna do for your finance, man? Like I was saying before, you have to sacrifice something. Same thing's been told to you. You're gonna have to sacrifice something in order, if you think about the future, like I done told you many times, you're gonna have to sacrifice. So to accept this job or keep the same job that you got now, don't you think that'll be beneficial to you while you're going to school?
Right. This would be definitely beneficial, you know, as far as me.
Russell Jackson, a counselor on the staff of Prisoners Aid at Druid Hill Residence Center, is himself an ex-offender, as well as a man who usually says what he thinks.
This job, you know, like it serves a purpose as far as me, you know, getting the things that I want that require for me to pay for books and things of this nature.
It's the same thing over and over again. Boy, them games you playing, man, you're playing them with yourself. You got to get yourself together. That ain't no bullshit. And you got to find just what direction you want to go in and quit playing games with yourself. I told you, you can constantly verbalize all day and all night like you're usually doing. And, you know, like to say, act wise, you know, but when it come down to the point, he does otherwise. And that's the same thing with you. If you were trying to get yourself together so much, why were you sent back?
Established just a century ago, Prisoners Aid is now located at the corner of Gay and Falls Way. As the only agency whose sole purpose it is to help ex-offenders, Prisoners Aid has often been successful at finding employment for newly released men. But the young man picked up this morning is almost frighteningly typical in that he has few marketable skills. Nevertheless, Prisoners Aid staffer Earl Maltsby asks the difficult questions, then proceeds to face the nearly impossible job of recommending something for the youthful ex-offender.
See, it's got to be me, you understand? I got to take the initiative for bettering myself.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm asking you now. What initiative are you going to take? You can't work. You want to go to school. You got a record. Your mother's on subsistence. You're getting ready to leave here today with little or no money. What the hell are you going to do?
So I'm saying I don't know no other channels that I can go through, you know, other than relying on the mother, you know. Like, right now I'm quite ignorant of any program or organization
okay. Let me ask you this way. Jerome. Let's suppose now that suddenly there was $30,000 available.
The pitiful situation about this case is that this kid's got a high school education. He does know what to do, what to say, and how to get by with it. You know, one of the biggest problems, as I see it, is going to be his really realizing that the world ain't what he think it is. That when he shows out there that all of these things that he's got in his A-man corner of his mind is not going to turn out the way he thinks it is. There's not going to be enough money at home. There's not going to be a situation with a job. He's not going to have the choice of waiting until his finger heals. He's going to be hassled each and every day as long as he's outside, you know. And his value of money and what to do. Probably the kid wants to go to CCP. Probably he really wants to get into school. But you just can't do that. There's no way possible for him to go to school and stay in school unless he's going to go in school by way of a training program that's going to pay him a stipend. The whole situation is impossible. First of all, we're going to give him the referral to the Department of Social Services. He's going to go over there. They're going to run him through an application. He'll probably get a total of some $38, which is not too much help to him anyway, because he doesn't have any clothes. Whatever money he's going to end up with in the next 72 hours is going to be enough really just to spend on clothes. That's if he spends it legitimately. And I doubt very seriously if that's what he's going to do. Diagnosis is failure. I think everything points to failure. There's no contact. He does not know any contacts. There's no contacts that we can give him actually that we can guarantee. We can send him to a lot of the places who have hung out their shingles for giving jobs to the hardcore, to the ex-offender. But there's no way you can take the guy after you get him in the office. I think that's the pitiful situation it's in. It hasn't changed. It's been that way for the last 15 or 20 years, and it's still that way.
Okay, but I'm hipping you now that they aren't any. What should we do now? They aren't any of those programs.
It's still that way. Thus, all too soon, the joy of being released turns to frustration, then to resignation. For when a man has few choices, he will do whatever is necessary to survive.
Once you figure you're going back in the street, and you want money, but your feelings at the time is that you don't give a damn. You feel nothing. You feel like I'm going out, and either I do it or I don't. If I wind up back in jail, the only thing I lose out on is maybe having my woman, or having a drink, or going to a cabaret or something. What else do I lose? Most people would say I lose my car, my second car, my home that I got 2 more years to pay. The man that's coming out of jail that has his criminal record has nothing to lose because no one has made any effort to give him anything that's worthwhile or help him to work towards anything that's worthwhile. So if I go to jail, me personally right now, what would I lose? I lose a car that I've halfway paid for that has been repossessed, but I do have an opportunity to get it back. I don't have anyone I'm attached to emotionally except my mother. And she's used to me going back and forth to jail. I don't want to put her through this hardship because it really does affect her. But what do I have to lose? Nothing. I have absolutely nothing. My only concern is that society, it will be concentrating their efforts on me and my kind again once I'm back out in the street. Now they make a hell of an effort to keep us off the street, but that's as far as they go.
In November 1971, Robert Montgomery was arrested and charged with shoplifting. Released on bail, he appeared for trial before the Maryland Circuit Court at Millersville on December 15, 1971. The trial was subsequently postponed, but for Robert Montgomery, the truly significant events of his revolving door existence may have already taken place.